Hello and welcome to the second Niagara 4.6 New Features Tridium Talk. My name is Rick Weisensale. I'm with the product marketing team here in Richmond. With me is Brent Lowe, our product manager for hardware, and Tim Urenda, one of our software managers. Excuse me, you're not a manager, you're an engineer, aren't you? So today we're going to talk about the new feature called Bulk Deploy from Excel spreadsheets. We'll start off with what is it? Well, what Bulk Deploy will let you do is use the standard Niagara 4 templates that have been part of Niagara 4 from the beginning, but it eliminates the manual template entry deployment, so you don't have to type in all the answers. It allows you to maintain configuration and edit configuration properties in an Excel spreadsheet. In addition, it will let you deploy multiple varieties of templates at one time. So just imagine selecting an Excel spreadsheet, hitting the Go button, and building an entire JACE 8000 application. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to build an application for an JACE 8000 that will have some BACnet HVAC controllers, some Modbus energy meters. We're going to add tenants for the occupants of the building, and we're going to add 4 specific end-user navigations. Before we get started, we'll take a little look at Niagara 4 templates. There may be some people here who are not totally familiar with how the templates work and what they do, so we'll take a quick tour. We're going to look at some templates for the things we want to add. So here's our collection of templates we're going to use. We're going to start off with, these are BACnet templates for a bunch of HVAC equipment. Here's some Modbus templates for energy. This is a template for adding any number of floors, and these are a collection of templates for adding tenants and the tenant occupancy schedules. We'll take a look at a typical VAV template. At the top of this template, you're going to see 4 properties. These are more or less for configuring the VAV box itself, typical things like duct diameter, minimum flow, max flow. At the bottom, we see some additional properties. All of these are used for configuring the end user navigation and telling where things are going to show up in that end user experience. Okay, so the first one, this is going to tell this VAV box to be associated with air handler 1. This one will associate the VAV box with floor 1. This one will associate the VAV box for presentation with tenant 1, and finally with the occupancy schedule for tenant 1. In a template, there are the ability to configure several inputs. What's going to happen is after this template is deployed, all of these inputs are going to be linked from someplace external to this existing template. And finally, we'll take a look at the graphics page. And this is a sample of the graphic that we contained in one of our templates. So the first thing we need to do is we need to export a collection of templates and put them into our Excel spreadsheet. We're going to export some HVAC related templates, so that we're going to export the BACnet devices, the floor, and the tenants. So step 1, we're going to select the templates we want to export. I'm just going to select them all for convenience and then take out the Modbus ones I do not want. And here is a new feature that's added to 4.6 called Export Configs. What happens is you're going to be given an opportunity to save this file somewhere. Now, I've created a folder called Excel Exports just to manage things. So we'll put in the name of the file and save it. When you save it, you're presented with an opportunity to define any string tag or any kind of tag you want to specify what the default value is in the Excel spreadsheet. So you can pick the tag, you can type in the default value, and then you can just save it, but we're not going to do that. We're going to move onward. All right. So then we get a confirmation that the template the template configuration has been saved. So what's happened is all of these templates have been put into a spreadsheet. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a spreadsheet that's already been configured. It's going to be the one we're going to use for the bulk deploy process. If we take a look at this, first thing we see is down at the bottom, there's a whole bunch of tabs. What's happened is every template that we deployed got installed into the spreadsheet as a separate tab. So you can see as I walk through, now in addition, the order in which we arrange these templates can be critical, and we'll see this in just a minute or two. First, we'll take a look at what's in this spreadsheet. Now, this is the location where the first components, the first floor is going to be placed, the name of the floor that we're going to put in, and this is the display name, which makes it a little more convenient for the end user. On the second tab, we see we're going to put the tenants, 4 tenants, into the tenants folders. And on the third tab, this is the critical part, we're going to put some actual occupancy schedules into those tenant folders that we created before. So it's critical that you get things in the right order. So let's zoom out and take a look at some of the other items in our spreadsheet. There is a chilled water system in the spreadsheet, but in this application, we're not going to use any, so we don't have one. We do have a hot water system. We do not have any air handlers. We have 2 rooftop units. And we have several VAV boxes. These are perimeter boxes with reheat. And finally, we have some interior boxes that do not have the reheat. Now I'm going to move over to the far right of this spreadsheet and zoom in. These columns are part of that navigation aspect of the template deploy. The first column says it wants to associate this VAV with rooftop 2, I believe that is. Next column with floor number 4. Next column is with Tridium tenant. And lastly, it will associate and also link to the occupancy schedule. Now, to make this work, what we have to do is we have to create a default station that has all the preliminary things in it that are going to be required to make our application work. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at this default station. So I've saved away a station for a JACE 8000 that has both BACnet and Modbus drivers pre-configured, and I'm going to go create, make a copy of my new station and start it up. So we'll take a look. In this station, I have 4 different hierarchy designs because I want to have separate navigation for different people. The administrator will see everything, and then the tenant, facility manager, and energy managers can see unique parts of the navigation. And let me move down. So I think it's going to move down. Okay. There's also very unique tag dictionaries. The top 3 come with Niagara, they're standards, but the bottom 2 are very custom tag dictionaries that were built to work specifically with all the the templates that we're using. And finally, within this station is something that I'm going to refer to as the building data. This is the place where we're going to put the tenants we create. The site worksheet is just a chart that the end user can use. We have built in a weather report, and the building name is what is the name that's going to show up at the top of all the graphic pages. In the navigation section, we have what these are is I'm going to refer to these as topics. As this bulk deploy process occurs, well, it's going to put things in those different topics. Right now, what we're doing is taking a look at this station in a browser. This is the default station, and as you can see, it has a weather report. It has the site worksheet. It has all the topics, but in those different topics, there's nothing there because the station is effectively empty at this time. So now we're going to actually execute the bulk deploy process. This is what we're really talking about and probably the shortest part of the whole presentation. Whoops, excuse me. So in the template service, there's a new feature. We call it bulk deploy from Excel. When you execute this new feature, what'll happen is you'll pop up a dialog that'll let you pick the Excel spreadsheet that you want to export from. So I'm going to pick the one we were looking at earlier and turn it loose. Now, if you pay attention to the BACnet network, you'll see a bunch of new BACnet devices being added to the network as we're watching it go. And what you're seeing now is some detail about what's happening under the covers. As you can tell by looking at this portion, it's going to flash by quickly. It's actually looking at every single template that gets installed and verifying that the station going into has the proper modules included. And then in this section, what's happening is it's coming back and adding all the configuration data and making all the links after the individual components have been added. And here's the results of our first phase of the bulk deploy. If I look up here in the corner, hopefully you can see this. We just added 90 objects to this station. And now we're going to come back and we're going to add some Modbus energy meters. And here we see a new energy device folder and 5 different meters as a main meter and some sub meters. So now we have our new JACE 8000 station with all these components in it. So we've created this station. Let's take a look and see what the end user's experience would be like from a browser. First, this is what we were looking at before we ran the bulk deploy process. So we'll just refresh this page. And once it's refreshed, when we look in the different topics, we actually see things have been added. We've added some energy information and charts. We've added 4 floors. Under the floors are all of the associated VAV boxes. We've added some HVAC systems. There's the RTU, hot water system. Under the RTU are the various VAV boxes associated with that RTU. And here's my little plug for a previously discussed feature where this is the new 4.6 repositioning and rearranging that comes with our responsive panes, so that if we view this on a mobile device, it's much easier to see. We also have the schedules for the individual occupants, and associated with the schedules are all of the devices that are connected to those schedules. And finally, we have tenants. And the tenant has its schedule. It has all of its controlled temperatures, cool, heating, and it also has its different VAV boxes that are associated with that tenant. Now what we're looking at is a different view. This is the energy manager view. Like I said, we've created multiple experiences for the different people. This particular user it's the same station, but through hierarchy design, this user is limited to only things that are appropriate for an energy manager. So we'll take a little review of what we've learned. The bulk deploy process requires 2 fundamental prerequisites: a collection of templates that support all the features required for the target application, a properly configured default station to which these templates can be deployed. The bulk deploy process provides system integrators with the means to do their work much faster. I mean, I think you would agree from what we just saw. I built a station in a matter of seconds, once I had the spreadsheet. And also by offering this process, system integrators can train people in their office to populate these spreadsheets from contract documents or project specifications that are not trained on Niagara. So this concludes the first part of our presentation. Now Tim, excuse me, Brent Lowe is going to talk to us a little bit about the new Edge 10 platform.
All right, thanks, Rick. I wanted to take a couple minutes here at the tail end of this Tridium talk to talk about the Edge 10 platform, as well as some new features that are coming in 4.7, which is in support of the Edge 10 platform. So if we take a quick look, let me get this going here. If we take a quick look at the Edge 10 itself, here we go. Sorry about that. The Edge 10 is our first IP-based I/O controller that is powered by the Niagara framework. So we've got 10 points of I/O on this particular controller. 5 of those are universal inputs, 3 of those are digital outs, and 2 are analog outs. There's a 485 serial port on it that you can use to bring in Modbus or BACnet devices such as a thermostat to help with your Edge application. Or you can even use that to expand the I/O with a IOR34, so effectively giving you up to 44 points of I/O for this particular device. It does have 2 Ethernet ports. Unlike the JACE, however, these Ethernet ports have the ability to be daisy chained. So you can continue that connectivity down a line of these Edge devices versus having to home run each one of these devices back to a switch. Our intention for this platform are for applications such as fan coil units, air handling units, heat pumps, zone control, hot water reset, small unitary applications like you see on the screen. We're really excited about this platform. It gives folks a single tool. So you have your familiar Niagara environment. So today you're running Niagara at the supervisor level, you're running Niagara at the integration level with the JACE, and now with the Edge 10 and other Niagara Edge-based devices, you can run Niagara down at the controller level running actual equipment. Cybersecurity is a huge topic here at Tridium, and we take it very seriously. Not only do you get all of the cybersecurity and lockdown features of Niagara, of the Niagara software itself within this controller, there's also hardware features like secure boot and a chip that positively identifies this device as unique in the world. So we have a way to ensure device identity. So not only are we working on the hardware, but we're also working on the software. So we know that going from a handful of JACEs in a building to potentially hundreds of Niagara-based controllers in a building, we need to make some changes to Niagara itself. And so we're working on some features and functionality within the Niagara framework to enhance workflows that are intended to save integrators time and labor and therefore money on it. So let's take a look at 4.7. If we go to the next slide, I'll give you a quick sneak peek into some of the new features that are going to be coming your way. So today we saw some of the provisioning functionality with bulk deploy, and in 4.6, and then now in 4.7, we've really beefed up the number of provisioning job steps that are available. So we wanted to make sure that as you have these Edge devices out in the field, you would have a way to essentially commission them in a bulk format per se. So we've created steps that allow you to update Niagara distributions, update security settings, including certificates, and then configuring out-of-the-box Edge devices themselves. So this is a superset of the commissioning steps that should give you a lot of really great functionality that you can kind of piece together like a puzzle and create jobs that will let you set up these devices in the field. So we'll go to the next. So we've also been working on a different type of template. So today, Rick showed you some functionality that you can use with component templates. With these Edge type devices, we're seeing that typically there's a specific application per device. So like a VAV or a fan coil unit or a heat pump. So we wanted to create a new type of template that you could essentially create an application once, and then turn that into a single distributable template that you can then configure on the fly and push down to other devices. So if you couple this with provisioning, if we go to the next slide, you get some very powerful functionality. So like Rick showed you today, you can use these spreadsheets now to configure multiple applications, multiple application templates, multiple component templates, and push those out to Niagara devices. So in this case, we can pair these application templates with provisioning to create the application once and then deploy to multiple devices using this provisioning framework. So you can have unique settings per device, and then you apply those bulk deploy tools that Rick showed you earlier to get those out to those different devices. So I think that's about does it for me. Oh, one more, of course. We've also, the last feature in 4.7, we also have made the JACE, the secondary port on the JACE, a DHCP server. So now you can hang edge type devices off of the secondary port, which will allow you to create a secure network, a closed network off of that JACE, as well as help you simplify the discovery of those Niagara devices, which is going to ease setup and configuration. So I know I've gone over these quickly, but we'll set up some future Tridium talks to go over them in a little bit more detail as 4.7 starts to roll out. So at this point, we've got about 9 minutes left in the presentation where we can start taking some questions. I know that Tim has been answering some questions on the fly, so let's see what we have.
While we're waiting, I can attest to the E10 functionality. I happen to have 2 of them in my house running my heat pumps. So I've found that they work quite effectively.
I pushed the wrong button. I got disconnected.
Oops. I see a question. I can't see the gentleman's name, but it says, can we also do alarms and history extensions configured using bulk deploy? Answer is yes. The way the Niagara templates work, you put your extensions and everything into the space that you're working on before you make the template. And so anything that was in that template, when you make it, it's going to pick it up. If you had history extensions in there, if you had alarm extensions in it, it'll include those. In addition, if you want to, you can put configuration tabs in it that you can put into the spreadsheet that would allow you to define things like, set points, alarm limits, how many history records you want to keep. But I hope that answers your question. Also see a question that was asked about the outputs, and those outputs are triacs. Unlike some of our previous devices, those are triac outputs.
I see a question about whether or not the daisy chain Ethernet ports on the Edge 10 platform support spanning tree protocol, and the answer to that is yes. Now that does rely on the router switch that you are using, as well as the settings within that switch. So there are some setup steps that need to be done to enable that, but yes, it is capable of RSTP.
And I see someone ask about this presentation being available for download. I believe the answer to that question is it will be, not immediately, but it will be available.
Yeah, so it'll be on the Tridium.com website under resources, events in about a week. There's been a couple of questions about, are the station and templates that were shown in this presentation going to be made available?
I guess we'll have to figure out how to distribute those. They could be. I mean, I'd have to give you the templates and the station, but we probably could do that. Let's see, I see a maybe unrelated, how did you get the icons on the hierarchy queries? Those things you were looking at are just Niagara folders, and I used an icon folder to do that and just assign the icons. Yes, we do allow you to run a provisioning service on a JACE 8000. You see another one?
There's a question on documentation. If you have not checked it out, if you go to docs.tridium.com, all of our documentation can be found on there, and that's a fairly new site. So that's definitely a really good resource. It's called the Tridium Resource Center, and that's docs.tridium.com. And you can find all of our associated documentation there.
Yeah, so the documentation for the bulk deploy is included in the template documentation there. The provisioning parts of that, the bulk deployment using provisioning is available under the Niagara provisioning documentation.
I see a question about using a third-party spreadsheet. Well, if everything had to be done in Niagara, that means the person who is going to fill out the spreadsheet has to actually have Niagara installed on their computer. And we kind of felt like once we've exported this to Excel, and I didn't show it, but at the top of each column, there's a description section where the person who creates the page can put in any type of description they want for where they might be looking for you to get the information to put in this column. But the intent there is anyone who has Excel on their computer can be the person who fills in this data without actually having to be either trained or have Niagara installed. How many BACnet devices can an Edge 10 manage? Brent, you know that one.
Yeah, so on the Edge 10 itself, we will allow up to 3 devices for a total of 50 points across those 3 devices. So those devices could be BACnet or Modbus.
And there was a question some way about connecting the Edge 10s to the JACE. When you connect the Edge 10s come out of the box with DHCP enabled. And if they can't find an address, they will default to a fixed IP address. But if it's enabled, the JACE 8000 will give it an IP address and put it out there, and then you can manage that network with standard tools in the JACE 8000. Oh, how many can you connect to a daisy chain?
We are supporting 16 out of the box. So as far as how many Edge 10s can you daisy chain together, 16 is that total. Can the Edge 10 controllers report directly to a Niagara supervisor without having to go through a JACE? Yes, they can. So you can either connect them via that secondary port of the JACE, or they can report directly to a supervisor. There's pros and cons to both of those. For the JACE, because the JACE has isolated ports, those edge devices will be completely shielded from the outside network of that JACE. So the only way that you'll be able to get access to those Edge 10s is through the JACE in that case.
Our next presentation is the topic is the system database, and we'll actually be, one of the things we'll be discussing is how to get the Edge 10s indexed into your supervisor. Well, it's the next presentation, right? In 2 weeks.
Is that
I don't think there's any. I see one about licensing requirements. The Edge 10 has basically one license. They all come licensed the same way. There's no real licensing options. I can't answer that one. Well, there's one about can we have sample station application templates? I think that we previously answered that. But we can I think we can publish the station I used and the templates, and the video will kind of walk you through how to do it. So I think that would take care of that one. And with that, I think we're about at the end of our time. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll have our next Tridium Talk in 2 weeks.